Hi, I'm Tom, and this is Adult Game Reviews. This week I review Season 2 of Fresh Women. I was not originally going to review Season 2 simply because I'm super conflicted about Season 1. Besides Season 1 looking beautiful, I had problems with pretty much everything else. From the shallow storyline, the awkward voice acting, and the stilted dialogue, you were pretty much just playing for the pretty renders, so I was assuming Season 2 would be more of the same. Was I right? Let's find out. I want to thank you all. The channel just passed 90,000 subs, and I'm hoping to get to 100,000 before the end of the year. Hopefully we can get there. By the way, if you're interested in more custom content, you can check out my Patreon or Subscribestar. I just released 23 completed games video. Unfortunately, not all 23 are safe for YouTube. So if you want to see that video and more, think about checking out my Patreon or Subscribestar. The links are in the description. Thanks again. Okay, so let's get into the visuals. Now let me preface this with Fresh Women Season 1's visuals were pretty amazing. You had some of the best facial renders you could have at the time. In Season 2, they're still very, very solid, but I've started to see other games kind of close that distance. Season 2's renders are very clean and kind of almost sterile. Then there are times where I was blown away, mostly with the close-up facial renders. However, there were other times where I thought I was watching Barbie dolls interact, which was a lot more noticeable than in Season 1. If you played many visual novels, there's a whole subset of visual novels that use DAZ that have very Barbie doll look. To me, this is a bit of a negative because it feels too disconnected from reality. I think Fresh Women has been able to kind of toe that line because everything looks so good, even if it's a bit too clean. There are animations, but they still lean into the kind of jerky or choppy style GIFs, you know, the kind that just repeat over and over. But overall, and unsurprisingly, the biggest strength of Season 2 is the visuals.
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
Moving on to the audio, there's music and sound effects. They're decent, nothing really special other than how often you hear them, which is all the time. I really want to talk about the voice acting, but I'm going to address that in a later section. I promise. It will all make sense. So let's get into the story, and damn was I disappointed with the story. I did not think the story in Season 1 was great, but I do think it was better than in Season 2, mostly from a focus and depth point of view. There are a lot of separate and vaguely overlapping storylines. I'm not sure if any of them were intentionally written to be extremely thin, or if it was a throw a bunch of crap at the wall and see what sticks kind of strategy. Let me just go through some of the storylines you will see in the 8-ish hours for one playthrough. You have the continuation of Season 1 with your father, you have the heist plot, you have the puritanical Vice Dean, you have the Hells Angels Club story, you have the dance studio, you have your side job, you have the Rush Week fraternity story, and you have the vindictive econ professor storyline. I'm just gonna say it. None of these stories were good. I guess I enjoyed the frat storyline a bit more than the others, but it was close. Each one of these plot lines were about as deep as my dog's thoughts. Saying it another way, the stories were so thin that they bordered on brain dead.
Do we look like the two dumbest guys in the world to you?
Things just kind of happen, there's a ton of plot holes, and none of them really make sense if you think too hard about it. I mean, the puritanical vice dean is acting as the school secretary to update student addresses because it's really important? I mean, what? Why? None of these were engaging, and do you know what made it worse? The voice acting. Now, let me be clear, the voice actors themselves were passable. The person that voiced Dylan was decent, and I think Julia's upbeat and perky personality fit the voice actor's portrayal pretty well.
Are you kidding? I'd love to help. We'll be like Bonnie and Clyde.
However, all the voice acting did was highlight how simplistic, stilted, and brain-dead the dialogue was. You could have Morgan Freeman voicing some of the parts, and even he couldn't make the writing interesting. I was bored more often than I was interested. There are some interactions later on with Julia and Chloe that piqued my interest. There was also another brief scene where chaos was happening during a school assembly, but outside those small moments, I felt like most of the story was kind of a throwaway. Like, you could easily play this game on auto and not really miss a whole lot. I mean, a lot of stuff happens, but none of it is really that important, and you're not really going to miss much if you were to just skip through to the interesting scenes. So what did I think? If you only care about the visuals and some of the relationship interactions, then you'll probably enjoy this game. However, if you want any semblance of story or plot, a lot of this game will bore you. I would say Season 2 is at best a disjointed and forgettable mess. At worst, this is a bad game with good visuals. You can tell Opaman put in a lot of effort for the production value, but when there's not much depth or substance, all the production value does is highlight how shallow all of this is. For me, this is a pass. However, like I said, if you just want pretty visuals with some scenes with Julia, then you may enjoy it. I want to thank all my backers on Patreon and Subscribestar. If you haven't seen my video on completed games, you can check it out right here. Thanks again. Until next time.